The Mandalorian, Chapter 4, The Sanctuary. On the run from the Guild, the Mandalorian flees to the lightly populated planet of Sorgan. There he encounters a mercenary and former rebel shocktrooper Cara Dune, who herself is hiding from bounty hunters after going AWOL from the New Republic. Afterwards, the Mandalorian is approached by two desperate krill farmers hoping to drive off Klatooinian raiders who have been tormenting their small village. He eventually accepts for safe lodging and he passes their credits along to Cara to enlist her help. Once at the village, a widow named Omera takes them in. When asked about his helmet, he confides in Omera that he has not taken it off in front of someone since he was just a boy and that the tribe took him in after his parents died. Cara and the Mandalorian after scout the area and find out that the raiders have an Imperial AT-ST, which causes them to rethink the whole situation. But despite Cara's advice, the villagers decide to stay and are then trained to defend themselves. After nightfall, the Mandalorian and Cara provoke the Klatooinian raiders and the AT-ST pursues them back to the village, where a trap has been set for it in the pond. The AT-ST is then lured into the pond by Cara, collapses, and the Mandalorian blows it up while the remaining Klatooinian raiders flee the scene. With peace having returned back to the village, the child plays happily with the other children and the Mandalorian plans to leave the child with the villagers. However, his mind is quickly changed when a bounty hunter from the guild comes after for the child, and is fortunately killed by Cara, reminding the Mandalorian that almost no place is safe from the guild. As a result, the Mandalorian and the child depart the village together and part ways with Cara. Coming off what seemed to be a fan favorite episode last week, Chapter 4 in turn does in comparison slow the pacing down, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's good to have a less intensive episode from time to time to act as a breather before things get crazy again. And that's exactly what episode 4 did here. The episode, interestingly enough, starts with a scene that's not from the Mando's perspective, something not yet done on the show, and I liked it. It was necessary as it allowed us to sympathize with the struggles that the farmers were dealing with, and have us want to see the Mando help them out. As for the best thing in this episode, that's got to be the introduction of Cara Dune. Now, it certainly didn't play the way I thought the Mando would meet her, but I liked what they did anyway, showing us that she's just as tough as a Mandalorian bounty hunter and a force to be reckoned with. Not only that, but in general gave us the impression of how badass rebel shocktroopers can be, which now I really want to see some show up in canon and other material. Other good parts in this episode were the Klatooinians, a well-known old-school Legends alien race being the prominent bad guys here. As well, the Mando confirming that Mandalorians were the ones who saved them from the super battle droid as a child and took him in, which we already knew the last part as he did say he's a foundling back in episode 1, but I know there was still plenty of speculation on who exactly saved them from the super battle droid, so I'm glad that question has been answered now. The customized Raider AT-ST with the red glowing eyes looked menacing but cool at the same time, making it feel like some kind of monster that lived out in the forest. It made sense that the Raiders would modify an Imperial AT-ST to fit their needs and make it more menacing than it was before. Oh, and we can't forget about that live-action Lothcat, plus every single scene that Baby Yoda was in here too was great as well. While also an incredibly minor thing, mind you, I did like the fact that Jon Favreau has made the Krill canon now. And considering the only Legends material they were ever before seen in was Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, my favorite Star Wars game, then this basically tells me that Favreau had to be a fan of that game too. Or at least like it enough to even remember the Krill from there, so that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, I just couldn't find myself loving this episode, and that's mainly due with the episode plot. Now, I liked the first act where the Mando met Cara, but soon as we got to the village, I felt things started going downhill from there a little bit. First, it has to be said, it's very obvious that this is copying, paying homage, ripping off, whatever you want to call it, from Clone Wars Season 2, Episode 17, The Bounty Hunters, which did the same exact trope of experienced warriors coming in to help train villagers to defend themselves from bandits, but done better in my opinion. Which of course, that episode was inspired from the Magnificent Seven, and in turn that copied from the Seven Samurai. There's really no hiding it, it's clearly an overdone story and we already seen it done very well before in Star Wars. So with that said, did I have to see another take of that done in Star Wars again, but in live action this time? Nah, not really. I'd much rather see original stories shown in The Mandalorian, but if you're going to do tropes and pay homage to older movies, then at least make sure it hasn't already been done before in Star Wars. Other things that bugged me was that it was never explained why Omera was randomly the only one so skilled with a weapon, especially in a village which has absolutely no experience in fighting or defending themselves. Had she at least said, oh, when I was younger I was enrolled in the Imperial Academy before I defected and that's why I have all these skills, or something like that, then yeah, no problem. But knowing that we'll most likely never see her again on the show annoys me on why they didn't even bother to give us some sort of explanation here. Also, her relationship with the Mando seemed kinda forced. Maybe it wouldn't had if we had several episodes of her interacting with him, but because of how much the show tried to pack in this one episode, it just didn't work for me. It felt awkward and rushed, what can I say? Overall, I do think this was one of the weaker episodes this season, not to say it was bad, rather quite the opposite actually, because really, we've yet to have a real bad episode of The Mandalorian thus far. This one was good, just not amazing or anything like that. So far, episode 2 still remains my favorite of the season, but now that we've hit the midpoint, I'm hoping that could and will change. Especially since the characters of Bill Burr and Giancarlo Esposito still haven't shown up yet. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that those episodes with them will be something else. But that was my take on this episode of The Mandalorian. Let me know what you all thought about it in the comments down below. And if you haven't already, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.